right. I am about to collect some honey supers off of this yard that has about 100 hives. It was a pretty good one here in the early spring. I have done some collection off of it. This is going to be a second collection. Well, that's not true. It's kind of dispersed out from time to time. And look at this. I actually just found on the ground one of the trackers that we used for sending off some of our hives from pollination. It's actually, you may be surprised to find out, but people get their honeybee hives stolen from, going to pollinate. They'll have, well, let me just show you. So our bees are on pallets on this yard, and they'll get loaded up on a semi truck, go out to California, be pollinating almonds over there. And there are literally thieves who will steal hundreds of thousands of beehives every year. So put some trackers on them. I actually had this one on the inside, so I must have taken the box off and not noticed that this fell. But yeah, so I'm gonna get into these girls right now. Walked over here because when I pulled up to the bee yard, there was actually a turtle just like sitting around, and there's no like pond or anything except for like way down, if I can point to it, way down over there. The turtle is gone now though, so I am going to suit up eventually. I'll put this down, might help. I'm gonna put y'all in the truck. I'm gonna suit up, and this should be hopefully a pretty good harvest. I have a couple of hives on the truck right now. Actually, it's kind of a mess. I was driving and like going down the road, and I had some honey supers strapped in, and the strap came off, and like all of the supers spilled all over the truck. So they're uncovered. That's not typical, and that's not really good or what you'd want, but that's where we're at right now. So anywho, I'm gonna get y'all propped up so you're able to see the honey process. I've gone ahead and added some of this spray, which it kind of smells like a sweet cherry, and put that onto the fume board right here onto these two hives. So that's the first hive I'm going to be harvesting from right now. Again, some of this has been going on. All right. Put these gloves on. I just use regular like dish gloves. I have the leather gloves too, and they work well, but when I sweat so much, which it's for, just to let you know, it's like 85 degrees outside right now, and today I think it's going to get up to 95. They're easier because they don't dry like hard like a leather glove would. Okay, so let's check this out. So here's this frame. As you can see, they've capped off the honey right here, and that's what I busted open. And this is like dehydrated nectar, but it's dehydrated enough that it's considered honey. There are some frames in here though. Just gonna place this back in. There are some frames in here though that they have started to draw out but haven't finished. So we use this for cut comb. And it's good because there's like, no wires or anything in it. There's also clearly not a plastic foundation, but they are not through with this honey super. So I'm gonna put them back intact. I'm gonna take pencil too and mark off. They're about, bring you over. The bees have been pushed down because the fume board will drive them down, so they're just starting to make their way back up. But all in all, there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pretty solid frames out of 9. So I'm going to put this cover back on. And when I make notes, I'm going to say that it's about like 75% full. I just don't want to take off these hives that they're already, or these supers that they're already working on. And I think adding another super would give them just a little too much space to work with. It's important to keep a beehive spaced out so that they have enough room to grow their colony, but not too much room that they have difficulty, controlling the temperature of their hive or defending against pests. Look at that. That's a good looking frame. That's a really good looking frame. And like right here is a drone bee. If you haven't seen my shorts, not my shorts, my short video that I made on drone bees, check that out. They're the male bees of the colony, and they have kind of a rough go around. Very integral to having success of the colony. They mate with the queens, but they have kind of a traumatic life, all in all. So this colony, I don't know why the fume board didn't work. I may have left it on just a touch too long. I'd stepped away to get some water. Again, it is just blazing hot out here today. Oh, that's really pretty. Yeah, that's going to be used for cut comb. Look how beautiful and light that is. All right, so what I'm going to do, let me get that spray and put it on this fume board again. It's called a honeybee bandit, and just give it a little light mist, and I'll place this on top of the hive. So I'm going to give you a reference point to see how many bees are up here. Some of them were driven down, but so I'll just gently, you can hear them. I don't like the smell of that. I honestly perfume and I'd like it, but the honeybees are not fans. So we'll get these girls pushed down. I'm gonna check this hive right beside it. Let me adjust y'all. See, I'm not used to doing lives. I don't know where I need to face you. Can you see it over there? Yeah, you can see. Okay, so the note on this is that it had a single bare frame and 2 built on the outside. Unfortunately, we didn't realize until it was a little too late. When we add notes, we tested out a couple different ways of how we add notes. And before, we were putting an outer cover and an inner cover on the tops of these. So when we added notes and wrote in pen, it didn't matter. The notes would be there when we came back. Well, little did we know, if we wrote in pen on these like waterproof, sheets right here that sit on the outside, the pen will wear off. It I guess gets bleached in the sun. So we have to use pencil. So some of the notes we took, in the early part of the season are missing. All right, so this is what an empty comb looks like after we spin out the honey. This is what you'd find. And so I hope you can see deep down in there. I'm gonna actually pull some of this out. There's actually pollen that the bees have put away. I'm just gonna tear everything up. Okay, so this is pollen that they have put into this frame. We don't use queen excluders, which is essentially just like this screen that makes it to where the queen can't lay up top, we give her full access to the hive. So they're bringing some pollen up there, and this is what they'll feed, the baby bees or the brood as they're developing. So yeah, they have not collected any honey yet. They barely even have any nectar. I guess on this side they must have, because there's like a little bit of capped honey. There's some. Yes, the wax is edible if I can't read in the sunlight. But yes, the wax is, 100% edible. The bees make it. I don't think you're going to really get any like nutritional value out of it, but if you get some honeycomb, and I had it in this other hive right over here, and I'll be seeing a lot more of it today, and y'all will be too. But when you like take a piece of that, it's just really chewy. It's like, I don't know if you ever had like braces or anything like that. I think that's a different type of wax. It's much softer, but the beeswax, I don't know, it's just chewy, but you can swallow it. It's not going to hurt you, but it's also not going to like provide sustenance per se. So I'm going to actually get into this hive a little bit deeper. They had their honey super put on a couple weeks ago, so I would expect a lot more honey out of them. And since that's not the case, that makes me think that they are possibly queenless. Let's see in here. Okay, so this is a double deep brood box. And by double deep, you see how like the other frame I had was only like half the size. This is considered a shallow, where this one right here is considered a deep. It's much larger. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing is that this colony is very likely queenless, because bees like to grow. Oh man, that's a tough one. Frames are all sticking together. The bees like to grow kind of from the inside out, so the very center frames are usually what will have the brood in them, so the baby bees. And that's not the case. So what I'm going to do, I can see even just from the top, this colony is actually being robbed out. So although there's a lot of bees in here, the bees are kind of thieves. So like some of these frames, thought I had it right here, it's jagged edges. And so there was honey in this top part. And there are robbers that will literally go and find a hive that isn't quite as strong, and they'll steal the honey. So yeah, once upon a time this did have honey, but it's in some of these other dozens of hives at this point. I'm going to put them back together, and if I had a queen on me or some other bees, I would make sure to go ahead and make this colony queen right. But at this time, I do not. And there's a couple other colonies that I've already identified that are queenless too. So I'm just going to make a note of today's date. It's June 9th. I'm going to mark queenless. And let's see if I have any bricks. This is like our universal sign. Not universal. It's just like between me and my dad, we're the beekeepers. If we have a brick up, that means like there's some attention that needs to be paid to that hive, and it's probably going to be that it's queenless. Everything else we kind of try to address like on the spot. All right, so I'm gonna get this honey super off. We were just looking in this hive. This is the one that I've shown you that had all that like good honeycomb. All right, and there's still some bees in this. Now, this is about 25, 30 pounds of honey right here. It's a little bit heavy. I'm going to set it on the truck, and then I'll turn y'all over towards me. Okay. All right. Whew, it gets to be heavy. So these bees are still sticking around in there, and I can see that it's just honey, that it's not any like baby bees or brood. Well, I take that back. This one actually, you see those cells, how they're different, how they're kind of bulging out? That is drone brood. So male bees will hatch out of these cells. But all around it, it's honey. So I'm going to blow. This is kind of a funny thing. We actually use a little blower. Oh, wait, I hit something on here. Y'all excuse me when I use these gloves. I'm hitting everything. It's night in the Philippines. Oh, hello from in the Philippines. I'm in Alabama. Oh, there's actually, we get some labels made for our honey, and I think that one of the representatives I talked with was in the Philippines. There's like a little Filipino place that's opened up in town recently. I want to go there. I want to try the chicken adobo. But anyways, back to the honeybees. I will use a blower, and the idea is that using those fumes will drive the bees down, and it's a gentle way of getting the bees, removed from the honey super and back down into their chamber where they live. But the second part of that is if they decide not to, we'll take a blower and gently blow them out of there. It's just a little bit easier than using a bee brush. One, because the bee brush can roll them. I still think that that's perfectly, good option, but this is what we use. Just a little cordless DeWalt blower. I wonder if I can turn this around so y'all see. There we go. All right, so, and then they just fly away. It works out really good. Hey, Decatur, Alabama. What's up? All right, so the bees are all over the place. I'm going to get this on top of the stack real quick. Let me set y'all. I'm just going to have to set y'all down here for a moment. Okay, since the bees are all over the place, I am going to cover them up, and whenever I get back to the honey house, I'll have to do the blowing out of the bees a second time, because I don't want any more to make their way into here. So they'll be good for now. On to the next. On to the next. And this is the hive that they came off of. So you can see right here, we had to previously seed this hive with a queen. If they end up queenless, you sometimes can go ahead and just add another like nuke or something. But even if you do that, you want to make sure. There we go. All right, so those are all the baby bees right there. And those those are the capped off. They will be the ones coming out the soonest. I don't see any eggs or larvae on this side. Let me see. But yeah, you can see that pollen that's on the edges right there. They keep the pollen in very close proximity to the capped off brood, just because they were previously feeding us. So I'm going to set these girls back in. I'm going to take just a moment though to check and make sure that this colony has a queen, because if you don't see the queen You're not necessarily going in a hive every time and looking for her, but you gotta see eggs. And I'm gonna be honest, right now, I don't, and that's concerning. Oh, I take it back. All right, let's see if I can get the light on this. In there are little tiny larvae. So this colony is queen, right? I guess it's just because I had the fumes on them that they decided to play tricks on me. I felt like there wasn't enough bees. And that hive that I had before that was not, was queenless, I'm going to take their honey super off and replace the one that I just took from this other colony. There's like virtually no bees, so I can just add it right back on, and mixing them won't be a big deal. Let's just hope I don't trip and fall. All right. Get those bees. And I like to take note of how much honey I harvested from each hive. So at, later in the season or at the end of the year, you can evaluate like how your colonies are doing and which honeybee yards produce better. So I harvested 9 shallows. Again, that's about 25 to 30 pounds roughly for a honey super, and replaced with built comb, 9 of them. Right, and I'll say that it's about 10% because there was a little bit of nectar in some of these. So the next time I go in this colony, I'll be able to tell what their progress is. I'm trying to see when we add the super. Looks like it's on 428 is what it says. So that's the first time I've harvested from that colony. They're probably just not quite as strong as some of these others because, well, I'm about to show you. There are some really strong colonies. Somebody asked what part of Alabama I'm in. I'm in Dallas County. So there is, our honeybees are in Dallas County, Perry County, Chilton County, some over in Marengo County. Look at how pretty that is. Trinidad. I'm going to be entirely honest. I would have difficulty, I think, picking Trinidad out on a map. I need to better educate myself. Trinidad. If you're still in the chat, hey, Jamaica, that's wild. There's people from all over in here in the chat. That is so crazy. Well, welcome to Dallas County, Alabama. Glad to have y'all on here. That is really very, very cool. I'm just going to pull one of these out. So if you can see that these frames are lighter than the other ones, and also this hive is a little bit more ticked off with me. These frames are lighter. These are brand new into this. We just sort of added them, this spring. So they started off as just bare foundation. So anytime I'm looking right in the middle on these particular hives where I know I've added new frames, I expect there to be less progress. And that's perfectly fine. It does take them a while to draw out the wax because well, let me think about how I explain this. It's the baby bees that can produce wax. They have, special glands, I think it is, that they're just more adaptable to that, where the older, more mature ones are the foragers that are going out and collecting, the nectar and pollen, but it's the baby bees. So I was getting a call. I don't know if that stopped the live chat. I am recording on my phone. But anywho, these frames I expect when they're brand new to have less progress than, say, one of these frames beside it. Yeah, you can see this colony is less excited to have me in their hive. They're usually not too upset this time of year since they're getting a lot of nectar resources. I turn you around. This time of year, since they're getting a lot of resources, they're usually not as frustrated, but you know, it certainly does happen. So this is really, really nice. That is a big frame of honey. These are actually medium. So I know that I showed y'all the difference between some shallows and deeps there a minute ago. These ones are even, those ones are like kind of the sweet spot in between. Sometimes they're called Illinois supers. I don't know how that came about. But yeah, for this hive, I am going to go ahead and just add a super beneath and give them more room, because this looks like a very strong colony. I don't love to see that they're like aggressive, but I'm going to be honest, they're really not. They're just protective. And if I'm like waving my hand around, they're not going after me or anything. So I don't think that they're queenless. But I want to give them a little extra room while also giving them extra time to finish out these center frames. It's possible to harvest like frame by frame, but it's also really a pain, especially because most of the supers that we use are shallows. It's just, you know, I don't know how much more over 30 pounds I want to lift, you know, a couple hundred times every time we spin honey. So we keep them to these shallow frames. And finding a medium box to replace that would be a little bit of a pain. So anywho, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to get y'all set up. I'm going to pick up one of these honey supers and I'm going to place it underneath. Let me see if I can get you turned around. All right, there we go. I can get you placed, or get the honey super placed underneath this one. All right. Have you guys on my headset, so if you can still hear me talking, it's because I'm looking for this honey super. All right, here we go. Shallow honey super, and just showed you over there, but that's what I was talking about, of having a frame that's brand spanking new. This is what it's going to look like at first. It's like pretty much paper thin, like you can kind of see through it. And this is what they'll build it out to. Now, if anybody in this chat knows, I've heard lots of people, more of like, I don't want to say elderly crowd, but like of a more mature crowd, call the honey comb with a B is how I use it. Honey cone, C-O-N-E. And I'm not sure if that's, you know, used in other places, that people actually call it a honey cone. Like I think of like a triangle. But I've always, I guess I started to know it as comb with a B. It's really confusing. I don't know if it's just the way people are verbalizing, but I've actually seen it like spelled out, C-O-N-E, honeycomb. Just curious if that's used anywhere else, since there are people on the chat from around the world. What do I do with my hive tool? Huh. Well, that's unfortunate. There it is. I found it. If y'all knew how many times a day that I lost my hive tool, I would be ashamed. All right, so I'm just gonna set this honey super, again, it's not quite full, gently up here. I'm gonna place this one down below and just kind of give it a wiggle when I put it on. It kind of spaces it out pretty evenly, but I'll give it a little extra care to make sure that the frames are of equal distance. If you don't, then the bees will, you know, build them out just how they are, and you'll have comb that's like really, say, wide at one end and really narrow at the other. It's not that big of a deal, but it can make the extraction process a little bit more of a pain. So I prefer to take the extra couple of seconds on the front end and give them proper spacing. And we use only 9 in ours. I think I said that little bit earlier, but you know, some people will even use even less. They'll use 8 frames in a honey super. It just builds that honeycomb out wider and fatter. So if you spin out 8 frames in an 8-frame box and 10 frames in a 10-frame box, it'll still be the same amount of honey, but like it's easier to extract when the honey is a little bit fatter than the frame. I hope that wasn't too confusing because I almost confused myself when I was saying it. All right, let's see. Added second super, and I'll write that it was 2 bare foundation and 7 wet. And now by wet super, what I mean is we have already done some extraction of honey this year, and well, within the past week. And you know, we'll leave that honey residue after we spin it out, and the bees love it. They'll, once we put it back on a hive that we're, say, collecting from or adding an extra honey super, they'll immediately go, and it kind of gives them just like a little bit of something to eat right whenever we put it on. I like to think of it as a reward for disturbing their hive. All right, so let's see what this, it's like approaching 90 degrees, and I don't know what the humidity is. I don't even know if phones can sense humidity themselves, but I can, and it's hot. So let's do this one more time. The hive that I just put the fume board on is bearding out, so the bees are doing really good. Let's turn the truck off so we don't have all that noise going on in the background. Yes, the truck is a mess if you're seeing any of it. Oh, don't sting me. All right, let's suit back up. That ding is too annoying. Let me take that off. All right, let's suit back up, get into these hives, and hopefully complete the task that set out to do of harvesting these honey supers. And maybe I can even bring y'all into the honey house after this is all said and done and show you the extraction process. I say you all. I think there's, oh, there are 9 people on here. Yay, you all. I know it kind of trimmed down after the stream interrupted, but happy to have you all on. You're just getting on. I'm just suiting up because the live stream was interrupted due to my phone overheating. Yeah, 90 degrees and electronics don't work out. But as much as I'll be able to take care of my phone, I still have to wear gloves and snake boots and a full suit. So that's fun. I don't mean to complain. I really enjoy this. It does get very hot though. Okay, let's see if I can keep you out of the sun and still be able to see what's happening. So there's a bunch of bees like covering the front of this hive. And I'm just gonna brush them off because whenever I take the honey super off, one, I don't want to grab them too, because if I smush them, you know, it injures them, it kills them. But 2, they don't need to be going into the pile with the truck of the honey supers I've already collected, because they will end up just taking an unnecessary ride to where they don't need to be. So this actually has a lot of drone brood down at the bottom. I was mentioning earlier that I'm going to go ahead and take the frames that have drone brood. I don't have any worry or concern for that being too cold for transport. It's very, very hot, and whenever I bring them back to the honey house here in just a little bit, I'll make sure to put all the frames that have brood on it together and put them on top of a hive. But I don't think I'm going to have more than like 18 frames total. But I don't want to leave all this honey out on the yard because there is a lot of honey to collect. All right, so we'll do that. Now, a shallow is like I said, 25, 30 pounds of honey. I don't recall what a medium is. I would have to think it's at least 40 pounds. So here we go, proper lifting form. Lift it up. I like to rest it on my belly so that I can travel with it. All right. And I'll bring you guys along with me to get the rest of those bees out. So this is also an additional opportunity to check on the underside of the hive. And just like you were saying before, it's just this thin little layer of drone brood on a couple of these. You know what? I might actually leave this. I might actually leave this super on. Now that I'm able to see this colony and these frames at a different perspective, there's virtually every single frame has some sort of brood on it. So what that means is I'll instead just take one of these empty supers right here. I'll put that on the bottom and put this one that's full up, or pretty much full up but still has brood, right on top, and I can come back in like a week and all of those frames with the brood should be hatched out. Now, I do get the question from people keeping bees of whether to put a new honey super on the top or on the bottom. As you just heard me say, I like to put it on the bottom. It is much more of a hassle going into it to put the frames underneath, because you have to, pick up the one that is full or filling up, place this one, and then put the heavy one on top of it. However, the reason I like to do it this way is, one, I think you get more honey this way. I think that they work it faster. Right. Are you wanting to stop streaming? No, I'm not wanting to stop streaming. It's one of the bees too. Oh, okay. If you weren't here, and I'm sorry because I can't keep up. I don't see when the chats or hear when the chats come in, but essentially the live stream stopped because my phone overheated. So we're back at it. But as I was saying, that I think that the bees make more honey if you put the empty supers below, because they're not crossing any honey barrier or threshold. I think that if they're already working frames, the ones that you put on top, they're going to be very apt to going back there. And I don't think having like extra wiggle room in between is going to disturb them at all. But, aside from all that, I do think that you get more honey this way. You also get the opportunity to look inside of this lower chamber. And I don't do a full in-depth hive inspection every single time I go into a hive. Would it be like best practices? Yes. But there are 100 hives, 100 colonies on this bee yard. And I have having done this for years, I have a general sense of when the bees are doing well. And really, it's more or less as simple as, like, if you can see a high volume of bees still in there that, aren't robbing or anything, but taking all the complexities out of that. If you see a lot of bees in there and they are doing good at their honey collection, it's a good, strong colony. So, with that being said, if you take the full super off and put an empty one in, you get to see in that brood chamber and be able to make that evaluation. And when it comes time to actually harvest that hive or that super that is filling up first, it's going to be on top. So that's always a plus. I am going to get that one that we just had. All right. Coming back with it. Line up the edges and gently place it down. Whew. Look at all those bees. They're just like this big clump. Just happy little clams. All right, I'm going to shake them in. And that's what I'm going to do with the top part too, because you see them all around the edges. I'll squish them. So give them a light tap. Get them off of the edges. I'm going to get these girls back on here and make notes, because the only way that you will know if your bees are doing good is if you take careful notes. And it doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Like right now, I know that I've seen some eggs and larvae, so I'm going to say Queen Right added second super, and note that it was 2 bare, 7 wet, and that the top super is galley. I would say that that's like 90%. The only thing that doesn't make that colony good and harvestable is the fact that there's still some brood left, and it's drone brood. It's not even like they're like regularly laying. So anyways, I'm gonna leave that colony alone. And I went not really out of order, but I want to make sure not to miss this colony right here. Hoping, yep, you guys can't see that. Just trying to keep you in the shade though. Again, we don't need another interrupted live because the phone is overheating. All right, let me see. I can turn y'all just a little bit more. There you go. You can kind of see it. Now, if I could only find my hive tool. Bonus points for anybody who can tell me how many times I've lost it this live stream. It's even painted red so I can find it. Huh. Apparently not red enough. Well, I guess I don't get this second. Let's pop this bad boy open and see what we've got here. All right. Generally, this looks pretty good. So this is what a colony is going to look like right when you pop open the top. One of the first things that I'm looking for is the volume, the number of bees. And it is pretty good, not great. It is the middle of the day, so I suspect that they're out foraging. So I wouldn't expect to have the full colony in here. But on the edge, what I see is that there are open cells. And open cells means that they are probably working the, putting nectar and honey in there, but haven't quite gotten to the point where they're capping it off yet. So let me pull this frame out. Just wanted to loosen it up. And yeah, that's exactly what you can see. You can see kind of that sparkle that's on the inside of these cells. That is the nectar that they're dehydrating. Oh, look at that. You see that honeybee right here? Well, right there that's gone in. She has found a hive beetle, which are a common pest in honeybee hives. A strong hive, it won't matter to them. They can't, they won't hurt it. But the honeybees can't actually kill those Japanese hive beetles because they have a hard outer covering. But you see them trying to, go after that hive beetle. And what they'll do is, if they can capture it, they'll drag it out of the hive. But it is quite difficult for a honeybee. Especially they just box them out, ice them out, and keep them from reproducing, because they will do that inside of the comb. But again, a strong colony, it's not going to happen. So it's a pest to the honeybees, but not really that big of a deal. On with that, since that last frame you saw there wasn't full, I'm pretty tempted to say though that this is harvestable, because that wasn't just, I'm saying it's nectar. It wasn't flying out of there, and you can take a read for the water content, and if it's low enough, then it's honey, it's good. But if there's too much water content, you can't harvest it. Again, having done this for a while, that should be perfectly fine to harvest. But I can take a closer look at that when arriving at the honey house. Now look at this. Those bees want in these honey supers so bad. And they have plenty of resources. I don't know why they're acting this way. Let me see though. I'm gonna get this fume board. Oh, I really need to find my hive tool. Should have extras. Should have extras. Yeah, like I said, I keep hives. It's me and my dad, and we're the beekeepers. And he is always ragging on me about how I like constantly lose everything. And I'll defend myself. I'm like, oh no, I'm not that bad. But I know I'm not bad. Here we are. Look, right where I left it. I really am. I'm that bad though. I'll get talking, doing something, set down my stuff, and then can't remember where I'm at. Also, another good reason to write notes on your hive. There's that. It's like a Chinese proverb, I think. It's the faintest ink is stronger than stronger than the best memory, or something like that. And that really holds true for me. I say that all the time. I think I actually have a video where I use that, and I probably said it wrong again. So I'm gonna harvest this one. I'm gonna get it up because even those new frames are capped off. It's just that end frame that I showed y'all that isn't completely full. So what I do is I get my hive tool between the two boxes. I lift up, and it's sticky right there. That's the propolis that the bees make. So I try to be relatively quick. What I'm going to do is set y'all on this, pick it up, and we're going to blow these bees out of the honeysucker so we can actually have a good clean harvest and not take the quadrillion bees with me. All right. Again, if you weren't on here earlier, we use a little handheld battery operated blower. It's a good gentle way of getting the bees out of the hive. Essentially, you just push them by wind and they fly out of there. Okay. Oh boy, come on, he'll get out of there. I'm gonna quickly get this loaded up on the truck. I think I need to turn this around. These bees are clever. They're going to find a way in no matter what, it seems. Okay, I thought my phone overheated again. Let me see. Well, that's mean. This isn't dumb. This is hard work. Okay. So, again, for this colony, what I'm going to do is put a honey super back on there. And that's more or less the ins and outs. I'm going to do this. I'm going to add that honey super back on and ask any questions in the chat. I think this is the last hive that we're going to do together. But yeah, go ahead and ask any questions in the chat that you have, whether it's about honeybees or about our operations. I'd be happy to answer them. And in the meantime, I'm just going to get this honey super put back on, and yeah, then we'll call it a day. But go ahead, we have a couple minutes. If there's any inquiries or comments, love to hear them. And if it's any comments about how we shouldn't have our supers out like this, yes, I know it was an accident. I had them strapped in the truck and had them strapped in yesterday, and I should have done the smart thing and checked the strap this morning before I took off with the truck, and I didn't, so they all kind of tumbled around. I actually had one fly off on the road, and thank goodness it was really early. I was trying to get out here early, beat some of this heat, and I actually had 3 supers laying on the road, broke some frames, broke some boxes, which is really super unfortunate because we build our own boxes. We don't buy these. We actually do this all ourselves. Everything from assembling the frames to assembling the boxes, cutting the wood down, planing the wood. It's a long process. So when something happens to your equipment, I guess it is as simple as just buy it, but for us it isn't. It means something to us. But got these girls on. Yeah, put their cover on. We have these with a little bit of a cleat to keep them from going off either way. Make sure that's on there nice and proper. Add their note. And we harvested so it's 6/9, June 9th, and we harvested 9 shallow. Yeah, that was a shallow. 9 shallow, and we replaced with 7 wet and 2 bare. So hopefully when we come back, we can see what the progress is on them, and that should be really good. I'm excited to see what work they do. There was a ton of clover here in the spring, and I actually saw a bunch just last week, but as I've been saying here a couple times, like, oh, they have so much resources, they might be dwindling a little bit. This time of year, it does start to get to be a little bit less of resources. July is really when it goes down a lot as far as what's available to them. But we're really excited. We have some local farmers in the area who are going to be doing some crops that should have a pretty heavy of bloom on them. And we're close to them, so if they have to do any kind of like pest management or anything, we'll know in advance, far in advance, to be able to move the hives, which again is really important for if you're going to be placing your bees anywhere, or if you're somebody who has a garden in the spring for them. If you know that there's any local beekeepers in the area, it's good to check in with them, because having a heads up on if spraying is happening allows us the opportunity to be able to move our hives and get it to where, oh, I didn't want that bee on my face. It gives us an opportunity to move our hives to other resources and not have our honeybees going out and collecting on those blooms at the same time that chemicals are going on. That's very dangerous for honeybees and all insects. That's why it's an insecticide. It's meant to be lethal. So it's not necessarily having direct contact on the bee. It can actually, and I know that some manufacturers say that it doesn't, and I'm not trying to get a lawsuit out here, but I think that chemicals stay on these plants a little bit longer than is advertised, and getting our bees far away and on a different resource for, like, say, a week can be really beneficial to them. So if you have honeybees and know that you have farmers or other neighbors or something local that may spray pesticides, ask them about it. And most people are really open to having, some type of notification, just sending a text being like, hey, we're going to spray tomorrow or next weekend. Otherwise, if you are the one spraying, try to check in with people. Anywho, that's really all I have. I don't think that there was any more comments or questions. I'll give y'all a couple more seconds, minutes if you want. Otherwise, it's just kind of me here yammering on, which, I mean, I can do. I'm a talkative person. I have lots to say. Just trying to think if there's anything relevant to the harvesting process. I can do a live as well of showing y'all what that looks like. That's fun. Essentially, it's going to be, pulling each of those frames out. You uncap them, get that wax off, and put them through a centrifuge, a little, spins round and round. Ours only holds 20, so it's not a lot, but it gets the job done and it keeps us busy, especially with you have to filter out all the extra big wax caps, and sometimes we get like a bee leg or something. So that keeps us busy with the honey extraction process. But either way, looks like there's nothing else. The last comment was, "Oh, yay! Do I have kids?" No, I do not. I do not have kids. I do have two puppy dogs that I treat exceptionally well to where you might mistake that for kids. They get their kibble that's too expensive for them, and I'll put like turmeric and moringa. I'll sprinkle some of that on and some omega oil on top of their food. So no like human children, just dog children, which might trigger some. I know some people don't like. I've seen this, that's cool. But anywho, signing off. I want to say thank you for joining me today on collecting honey supers, and I'll see y'all again whenever we're spinning out. But until then, I don't think I actually know how to end a live. Yeah, I don't think I know how to end a live. Y'all might just be on here with me. Bless my heart.